We talked about this in a very detailed conversation with John O'Shea on Inside the Numbers last time he was on, and I want to welcome again John to the show because he's got big news. John, thanks so much for joining Inside the Numbers, my friend. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, thanks, Rich, so much. I appreciate you having me back on, and a blessed Good Friday to you and your family.
John, the last time you were on, we had a big conversation, a big, deep, thorough conversation about the not only the failures of the banking industry. Your experience made you uniquely qualified to talk about this, but overall the general concept of not having leaders who are serious enough or big enough to rise to the challenge and deal with these issues like adults before they come crashing down on us, and that we have very little time to right the ship, to steer the ship straight now. All right, so I know you have something to say, something to tell everybody. I'm just going to give you the floor, my friend.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right, and the decline in this country is only accelerating. And you just mentioned about losing the U.S. dollar as a global reserve currency, and that's happening at a accelerating pace. In fact, Total, the French energy company, just announced that they were buying liquefied natural gas from China and paying in yuan as well. So now we even have allies piling in on that. But, I agree. I think the direction of this country is alarming. I think that there are too many people who are unfortunately just standing by and shaking their heads. It's something that I've long given consideration to. In fact, I pray every day asking God to just make me an instrument and to do his will and to bring glory. And on this topic about this country, I feel like we're losing divine providence, that we're headed in the wrong direction, and that we do need new leadership that will come back and take us back to our prominence so we can be that shining city on the hill. So it's with that in mind that I now announce formally here on your show, which seems apropos, that I have filed paperwork and I am formally entering the race to run for Texas 12th Congressional District.
Well, I'll tell you, the studio erupted. The audience, especially those who are familiar with you, that you were on last time. I cannot tell you, John, the ravings that we got having you on. People really thought that you got it, that you got the core of not just the issues that we're facing, but the reasons that we are facing them. There's symptoms, John, and then there are root causes of disease. And why don't you get into a little bit about. First of all, before we do that, I would like to show you a little bit of something I found. All right. Okay. And I think we actually had spoken about this before, but this is what I think most voters, Republican, Independent, Democrat, this is a perfect example. Your opponent, the incumbent, all right, that they really just cannot stand anymore. All right. So Republicans run to be on a certain platform. Democrats run, they have a certain platform. Yet it is repeatedly examples that we can point to with incumbents on the Republican side where they don't hold true to that platform. And it's like the longer you're in there, the worse it gets. But this is something from Texas, right? 4 Republicans voted to support federal education bureaucracy. This is a stabbing of the back of, going back to Reagan, John, right? Tony Gonzalez, John Carter, Michael McCall, and who would be your opponent is your opponent now. Kay Granger, the incumbent in this district, sided with Democrats on a bill that was filed by Kentucky U.S. Representative Thomas Massie. It would have terminated the department's authority on or before December 31st, 2023. And yet Kay Granger voted against it. And I really want to, is it this, a lot of people wouldn't run against an incumbent. I'd like you to speak a little bit about why you think it's time for somebody to challenge Kay Granger.
Well, I think there are people here in this district who have felt like it's long been time. And in fact, she did actually have a serious challenger in 2020, a guy named Chris Putnam, who actually I met with and turned out to like quite a bit. In fact, he and I are very similar kind of guys. But unfortunately, Chris ran as an America First candidate, and as the situation dictated, President Trump needed Kay Granger's vote. And so he officially, near the end of the campaign, endorsed Kay. And it's kind of hard to run as an America First candidate against an incumbent who received President Trump's endorsement. So he ended up losing by about 12,000 votes, whereas previously he had been winning in the polls. But, the real reason, and there's nothing, I'm very loath to attack a fellow Republican, even though there's some debate. I mean, she was a Democrat previously. She has done some good things for this district. She had been the mayor, and most people regarded her as a very good mayor. But to your point, you get to DC and you spend time in there, and unfortunately, you look into the abyss and the abyss stares back. And she's now in her 14th term. And as you said, I don't think that she represents the America First values. She's very establishment. She's virulently anti-Trump. She originally endorsed Jeb Bush. When President Trump received the Republican nomination, she refused to endorse him. And in fact, prior to the election, said that he should withdraw. And then after receiving his endorsement, she was only the second person in Capitol Hill to say that Trump had lost and he needed to get over it and need to leave. In fact, she said it second only to Mitt Romney. So that gives you an idea. In fact, another idea of what kind of Republican she is that when Chris Putnam did challenge her in the 2020 race, he kind of bled her account down. And I think she was startled because she hadn't really faced a serious challenger before. So what did she do to go replenish her coffers? She went out on a barnstorming tour, not here in the district, but across the country with Liz Cheney. I think that kind of tells you all you need to know about her.
And yet, when we saw this indictment of the former president come down, and right before President Trump's speech in Waco, this was before that, there was a list the president put out of people who had his back. We were all expecting at that point anyway for the DA in Manhattan to indict him. I didn't see her name on that list. I saw somebody and you know him quite well. I saw Ken Paxton. I did not see Kay Granger's name on that list.
No, I think, I have it on good authority that Kay is somebody who is not in President Trump's good favor. And in fact, ironically, even after receiving that endorsement, she was absent for the vote and refused to vote via proxy and said, well, Republicans don't vote for, using the proxy method. And yet throughout that congressional session, then she voted via proxy over a dozen times. So again, just disingenuous and frankly, kind of a betrayal of the person who had supported her and helped her get reelected.
Just so people understand the district here and where you are, John, I mean, you are the largest Republican populated area in the country. I mean, that's just so people understand. Tarrant County, big county that is still very Republican. Whereas, you have the Dallas area, you have the Fort Worth area, and a very healthy competition between the two, right? I mean, even though people say Dallas, Fort Worth. Generally speaking, one of the things we did get into leadership and the difference in this generation that is not meeting these challenges. She's been there a long time. You just pointed out. What's your take or what's your feeling? And I know, but let the audience know where you stand on careerism when it comes to DC specifically, but in politics, where if you got elected in this area to represent this area, what would be your thoughts on how long you'd stay in DC? What you would generally aim to achieve there?
Well, it's ironic. I actually didn't really ever want to go run for public office, but I felt a calling for it. So, it's not something that I enter into lightly, and it's not something that I crave for a career. In fact, I think part of the problem that this country has right now is that we have a professional class of politicians, which is what our founding fathers never envisioned. So what my pledge is that I am running specifically to support the 2024 Republican president. We all know right now, it's clear, it's going to be Donald Trump. This is an America First movement. This is his movement. He needs the support. He knows what it's going to take to roll back this administrative state and return power back to the hands of we the people. For that, I'm willing to give up my ownership as a citizen and become a servant. But my pledge is that I plan on running, if the good people of this district will have me, for 4 years, 2 terms. That's it. What I hope to do with this campaign, actually, and our campaign manager is your good friend, Don Smith, who I actually got introduced to via you and your show. But Don and I hope to do a series of videos and broadcasts kind of showing what it takes to actually run a campaign and how, what the inner workings are behind it. Because right now, I think it's too nebulous for people in general. And what I hope to accomplish is encourage a wave of people to get in off the sidelines because their country needs them right now. I think that, the the first 100 people into any business or factory right now, I think I would take over the first 100 politicians walking into, the halls of Congress. We need common sense. We need America values. And right now, I feel like that's just lacking in DC, with some notable exceptions. And there are some very good Congress people here from Texas. But right now, I think that we need more. And I'm going to try and do all I can to try and encourage that wave of growing sentiment that people need to grab the wheel back from the hands of this ruling oligarch that we have right now.
If they saw the last episode, then viewers are a little bit familiar about what you did, because you didn't have any aspirations to be a politician. You very much, like the former president, were just a successful private sector businessman. If they were watching before, they did see a little bit about your experience in the private sector, turning around the bank that was in deep trouble, which is what led to that conversation we had about the banking crisis last time. But since then, you've done quite a lot, and you've been successful at it. So why don't you tell people a little bit about what you've been up to? Because it doesn't include politics. And I think we need more of this.
Yeah, no, I agree. And fortunately, I'm hearing a groundswell of people across the country. People I talk to who are speaking to other groups. I've had the opportunity to speak before a couple of groups, and you can sense that there is an awareness. I mean, if there's any good that can come out of the last 2 years, is there's this dichotomy of what it was like in this country under President Trump and an America First leadership versus where we are now with this kind of global woke populism, or not populism, global woke, authoritarianism, frankly. And so what I had been doing, I actually, my wife, unfortunately, had a very serious health issue. She suffered brain cancer. We saved her, but unfortunately, she's very much disabled. And so I took some time away to go and raise my kids and get them kind of out of their former life. And we went exploring down through South America. So we had a chance to see different cultures and different countries and their different values and raise the kids. And when I got back, my partners welcomed me back with open arms. And we ended up doing something, building in kind of the construction area here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is an area that has very explosive growth. Texas is a very conservative state, very well run. So we experience a lot of positive migration coming in and a lot of job creation. So what we've done is we've built a company with different partners where we're into real estate development. We actually have our own construction company. We have a couple of quarries. In fact, one that we just opened up about this time last year. And then we have a concrete company. So very much, out of the political realm, so to speak. But like I said, what God told me was it was time to stop yelling at the TV from the couch, and it was time to actually get more involved. And with encouragement from some people like my good friend Ken Paxton, I've decided that my country needed me, and if that meant taking a time away from my life that I enjoy my anonymity, but. And look, I'm not naive. I understand as an America First candidate taking on an establishment incumbent, I'm going to receive all kinds of slings and arrows. But it's up to me to do my part. I can't just let other brave people sit there and take it. And courage is contagious, and so I hope to encourage other people to consider equally entering into the fray.
It is indeed. And I think that's one thing that perhaps the most dangerous about the former president's movement is that, and even after, his loss in 2020, it brought all of these new people out that I think otherwise would not have, from local school board levels all the way up to the national level that you're putting yourself forward for now. With the national level in mind, John, what do you think are the three? I mean, we talked a lot about this last time, but what do you think are the three biggest problems, or not even, maybe you think it's one, problem that this country faces right now? I mean, I hate to bring it up again, but it's worth bringing up. The former president just on True Social said, by the time I'm looking at this and by the time I get back, this may be far worse than we ever thought it was. And it would be harder to write. It's not 2016, right? The petrodollar could collapse. I mean, there's just so much that we're looking at. What do you think are the biggest challenges this country faces right now, or something that needs to be addressed more than anything?
Well, I think first of all, we need to restore our sovereignty, and that includes locking down the borders and knowing who we have actually entering into our country. I mean, a nation without borders is not a nation at all, and that also includes, kind of
Amen.
this dangerous flirtation that we have with groups like the World Health Organization and the United Nations, and ceding over our sovereignty to these organizations. Look, nobody elected Dr. Tedros to have any kind of say over their lives here in this country. And so why our ruling oligarchs think that or the World Economic Forum or anybody else should have any say in who we are, how we govern our country, and how we live our lives is absolutely beyond me. So I think that's first and foremost. Then I think the second thing is that we need to get the spending and under control, and we need to do everything we can to shore up the dollar. I mean, the collapse of the dollar as a global reserve currency would be just a tremendous tragedy. And once you lose it, you don't get it back. Just ask the British what they, have had to endure ever since the pound was lost. It used to be said, sound as a pound. And now, then it
Right.
fell to the US dollar. And if the US dollar is no longer the global reserve currency, well, then guess what? We can't just print money magically. And then also, all of the US dollars held overseas won't have the buying power overseas. So they'll come flooding back into this country. And if you think we have inflation now, we're talking about hyperinflation, maybe along the lines of Argentina. So I think restoring our sovereignty, getting our economic house in order, and then we just absolutely have to do something about the way that we're projecting our strength, and that we're meddling in overseas and foreign involvement. If it's the debacle of the absolute Afghanistan disgrace and our withdrawal there, which ended up costing service people their lives needlessly, which armed the Taliban with $85 billion worth of cutting edge military hardware and handing over the Bagram Air Base to the Chinese Communist Party, or if it's allowing this alliance of other countries to form against us, especially in response to our involvement in the Ukraine war. I know it's not popular, and I wish that there wasn't an armed conflict going on, but who here thinks that if President Trump had been in the White House, there would have actually been an invasion to begin with? I mean, I said it on your show last time, and I'll say it again. The only president in the 21st century that Putin didn't invade a neighboring country on was, President Trump, because under George W. Bush, under Obama, and now under Biden, Putin has seen this, military invasions. And you had brought up the point the last time. It's not that he's looking to restore the former Soviet empire. It's but that we've been meddling in affairs. We our color revolution with the CIA and Victoria Nuland, led to the removal of a democratically elected, president in Ukraine who was pro-Russia, and replaced with one that was pro-West. And then now you've seen this kind of constant tampering and meddling in these foreign affairs have done nothing but diminish our weakness overseas. And in fact, our allies right now are really nervous. And that's why you have like Macron going over to visit with Premier Xi over in China and accepting a deal where they're buying liquefied natural gas with yuan. And frankly, our enemies are banding together. I mean, the whole group that's looking at forming alternative monetary policy includes Saudi Arabia and Iran, which China actually brokered a peace agreement with, which is incomprehensible in and of itself. But the U.S. has been absent, and of course nature reports a vacuum. So who's gone rushing in but China, and they're allying the rest of the world against us right now. So I think those three things are the most critical. But frankly, it's almost like drinking water out of a fire hydrant. I mean, there's just so many raging infernos right now going on, and it's all been self-inflicted. That's the part that's the most egregious to me.
That's right.
Is that Biden was handed a great situation by President Trump. Inflation was under control. Our border was secure. There was global peace. Our economy was recovering nicely. In fact, the only thing that was really hindering it at that point in time were certain governors that were still refusing to open up their states because I guess they just enjoyed the power trip that the emergency use authorizations had provided them. But, everything was in good stead. And now look at us now. And I ask you, I mean, can you point to one single aspect of this government or our country right now that you feel good about?
Yeah, you said something too right off the kicker, which is when it comes to being the global currency, the standard, the British are a great example. I think about this all the time. Once it goes, it doesn't come back. You're not getting it back. So the time we have to right this ship is narrowing. The window's narrowing, and it's doing so very quickly. And it's just not going to happen with this group of leaders, this government, right, left. So many of these people just have proven time and again they are not up to this challenge. It's not going to happen. New leadership needs to come in and has to deal with these issues before it's too late. And frankly, we're getting very close. So this next election is extremely important. I don't care what you have after your last name. So John, I'm honored that you came on. I'm excited for your decision. I wish you all the best. I want you back, of course, on the show to talk and keep us up to date. But tell people where they can find more about you and how to keep up with what you're doing.
Sure. Actually, they can go to my website, o'sheafortexas.com. There they'll have all my social media. The website just actually went live today. And so we'll be posting new material there, and they can follow me on all the different platforms. We'll be posting on all of them regularly. And I look forward to getting out and getting to meet people and listening to their concerns and finding ways that we can address this. But, for our nation's sake right now, I God bless President Trump for trying to pull a Grover Cleveland, but I think this country needs that kind of America First leadership. And I think he's the Cincinnatus of our time that can step back up and kind of right this. But he's right. It's going to take all hands on deck. And this is not going to be as easy as it was in 2016. The amount of carnage and destruction that this feckless administration has waged over the last couple of years is going to be a very difficult task.
Yeah, well said. I couldn't add anything else to that. Come back again soon, John. I'll see you soon. Come back again soon. I'm excited for you. Wish you all the best, my friend. And thanks for coming on. And again, I'm honored that you came on here to announce this decision. It's a big deal.
It kind of seemed like it started here watching your show. And so it seemed apropos. And so all my love to you and your family. And I'll look forward to seeing you. And thanks again for having me on.
All the best from Laura and I, and we'll see you soon. All the best. John O'Shea, ladies and gentlemen. Go check out his website. Follow him on social media. I'll tell you right now, I know John. This is what this country is going to need. A bunch of new people who are successful in their own lives and not aspiring to be politicians. Didn't go to Yale to be a politician. I mean, there might as well just be classes. They all follow the same pipelines. We need real people who understand the real world impact of what is going to happen if this ship is not righted soon. If you think that we are exempt from history, you are sadly mistaken. And listen to something he just said. Take anything away from what he just said. Once we lose this status, you don't get it back. There are tons of examples of Cincinnatus, Grover Clevelands. If you look throughout history, there are no examples of great powers who fall from the great power podium and then get back up on it. Once they're gone, and that's a wrap. All right. So you're not to sound, no, I want to sound dire, because that is the seriousness of this situation. All right. I'm so glad I can't even say I'm, again, honored that John came on here to do